What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds. Coming to you today with a different kind of video here. We're going to be talking about my overall thoughts on Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 3. But this time, I have brought some help on with me to do it. Returning to the channel, my good friend DJ. How's it going?
What's up, guys? Doing good, doing good.
Ready to talk some Clone Wars today?
Oh, always, man.
Yeah, very, very exciting. I can't wait for the people to see. You were actually on with me to talk about the entire Citadel arc. At the time of this recording, the people haven't had a chance to see it yet. But when those videos finally come out, I'm very excited because we had a blast with those for sure. Joining me, you guys, today for the first time ever here on the channel, please welcome Orcaz. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm doing good. It's great to be on the channel for the first time. I've been watching for a while now, watched all the Clone Wars videos you've made, so it's finally nice to be on one of these.
Is that how you were introduced to my videos, was the Clone Wars stuff, or were you watching before?
I'm pretty sure the first video that got me onto you was the every Clone Wars episode ranked.
That was okay. Sure. Yeah, that one was for a lot of people for sure. Yeah. I think that's like my most viewed video at this point as well. And honestly, likewise, dude, I've been watching your Clone Wars content as well. For those who haven't seen his content before, he's put out long, in-depth videos talking about each season of Star Wars The Clone Wars. I think you also do some NASCAR stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of NASCAR stuff. I've wanted my channel to be more about Star Wars, but I've just kind of gotten into the habit of doing NASCAR races weekly. So it's been a little unfortunate. Hopefully I can make more Star Wars videos, especially when Skeleton Crew comes out. But yeah.
I think it also helps when the Star Wars content that you're talking about is also enjoyable content too. I would say if it's maybe content that, more recent stuff that's come out that maybe you don't necessarily enjoy, it might be a little bit harder to make videos on it, and I can definitely relate if that's a thing.
Yeah, Acolyte was a little rough, but
I think we're all in agreement there. But we're not. I let us into that though. But at the end of the day, we are here to talk about Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 3. This season, you guys, I feel like I've been saying it all season long, but it felt like halfway through this season just kicked itself into a whole nother gear. Everyone had its tire changes, and that's totally the reason. But the incredible arcs that we get in this season. So I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys as far as where you want to take the conversation. DJ, I guess I'll start with you. Is there anything in particular that you want to start out with when it comes to season 3? Just any overall thoughts or a specific arc that really stood out to you? Where do you want to take this?
Especially for season 3, there's so many different arcs that we can take different angles to. But the arc that stood out to me the most was the Mortis arc, man. Holy cow, was that arc amazing to watch, man. Just the Force, the Jedi, Anakin's foreshadowing, it was just very impressive to see for Clone Wars, because we've been talking about too, it kicked itself up to another level with that arc, and oh my goodness, that arc was just amazing. Seriously, it was, I can't even explain it in words. It's just so unbelievable.
It is an arc that left you with a lot more questions than answers. I'll definitely say that much. Orcaz, what about you?
Well, I think the one arc that really kicked this season, what really made it stand out or started to make it stand out from the other seasons, was the Night Sisters arc. I feel like you go from the political episodes with Padme straight into this episode, or the first episode of the Night Sisters arc, and it just feels... I mean, I liked those episodes, but this just felt so much different. It felt like, oh my gosh, we've really, jumped the cliff here, and we've really stuck it too. This is insane.
So which of the two fights in that arc, the two saber fights between Pajama Dooku versus the Night Sisters, or Ventress and Savage versus Dooku, which one do you prefer?
I gotta go with Pajama Dooku, man. It was so nice to see him in a solo fight just kicks Ventress and the Night Sisters' butts. That was insane. It elevated Dooku for me as well, just seeing him like that. The fight with him and Anakin in Attack of the Clones was good. He beats them, but it didn't really feel all that epic, if it makes sense. This fight feels epic. And yeah, that just really made it stand out to me.
When you watch the Clone Wars movie and you watch Dooku fighting Anakin, it doesn't actually feel like Dooku fighting. Like when you watch Dooku in this, fight here with the Night Sisters, or even the fight with Ventress and Savage, the way that he's holding the lightsaber with one hand and the way he like dodges and weaves, it feels like Dooku. And that obviously comes with like the progression of the show and everything like that as well.
You can make the argument as well, like the Dooku versus Asajj and Orcaz, like that was a good fight too, because like you got to see Savage unleash all this anger and power, and you really get to see him push into like this main character, well, not main character, but a decent character to develop in a way, because like you're like, oh, he's going to be related to Maul and he's going to be looking for Maul. Like you could see the character development in him, but also in Ventress too, because we really get to see in that arc Ventress develop on her own, and with the help of the Night Sisters too, like get to see her background and how she grows into her background again.
The difference between her with like the micro series and this show, with the micro series, she was very much a badass, right? Like the fight with her and Anakin, like everybody loves that. You know what I'm saying? What the Clone Wars animated series did so well, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but what the Clone Wars animated series did so well is it gave Ventress this arc. And, kind of to your point, DJ, as we go on with the Clone Wars, you're going to start to see more from people like Savage and people like Ventress. So yeah, this was and to like Orcaz's point as well, like this was a great first step into taking the Clone Wars into a whole nother gear. DJ, you and I, like I said, we were just recently talking about the Citadel arc as well, and that was something that it was really the first arc, like within like 6 episodes, that we actually got like some Clone Wars style action. Because what was one of the things we were talking about before, right? About the Night Sister Ventress stuff, it like went away from the Clone Wars style battles that we were getting, and Mortis definitely did that as well. So here it was kind of like a stealth mission that goes wrong, and then them becoming fugitives and having to try to make their way off the planet. I thought that was incredible.
That whole Citadel arc was the definition of a Clone Wars battle, because we have the Jedi clones, droids, separatists, like a nice stealth mission, that gone run, and they have to like think on
the
those
space
spots.
Battles as well, right?
Yeah, and we have like space battles too. Like that's the definition of a Clone Wars battle to me. Like that whole arc was just awesome to watch.
Orcaz, what did you think of the Citadel arc?
Yeah, I love the Citadel arc too. It's so close between, like, I love the Night Sisters arc and even the Mortis arc, but honestly, I think the Citadel arc can contend with even those 2 arcs. Like, it's around the same level in my opinion. All the 3 episodes in the Citadel arc, none of them miss. All of them are like A-tier episodes, and the action in every episode doesn't slow down at all. I love it. It's a great arc.
One of my favorite moments from that arc actually comes at the very end of it, when Tarkin and Anakin shake hands and you hear the dark side theme playing in the background. It was such like this subtle thing, but even like when I was a child watching this episode was something that I picked up on. And it's just like super, like this weird meta foreshadowing of like, what, like, yeah, these 2 are going to be like partners in crime one day for the Empire. And just, I thought it was so good.
That's another thing the Citadel arc does well. It's not just like action and battles going on. There's other things in play. Like you get to see the progression of Ahsoka. You get to see the progression of the clones. You see, Echo is supposedly killed, and you get to see like how Fives deals with that. It's very subtle in that, but you can hear and see like the visual sadness in Fives when that happens and after it happens. And especially, of course, the Anakin and Tarkin subplot, how Anakin, starting to have similarities with the bad guys. Like Tarkin, very military-esque, and Anakin relates to that. So you get to see where, that falls down into, the end of the Clone Wars.
With Anakin and Tarkin throughout this whole arc too, like you could see like how both are gossiping who the Chancellor likes more, because Tarkin's like, I have favor with the Chancellor, but then Anakin's like, oh, I do too. And then like you could see them like gossiping like, oh no, the Chancellor likes me more, and I likes that more, because like Orcaz was saying too, this was a growing chemistry partnership that would go on into episode 4 later
I
on.
can't wait for you to see, specifically DJ, I can't wait for you to see the edit that I did when you and I were talking about that, because like I died of laughter when you made that initial analogy the first time.
They were like teenage girls in a shopping mall when they were both when they were both mentioning like, oh yeah, I happen to be favored by the Chancellor. Really?
Yeah.
Really, I happen to be favored by the Chancellor too. Oh, really? It was like,
Well, I know the Chancellor because of this. Well, really, because I know the Chancellor because of this. Yeah, you're right. It was very teenage girl-like, wasn't it?
One of the things that I, going back to the subtle teases of him having doubt and worrying, like, right before that second episode ends, he looks at everybody's like, this landscape is almost impossible to cross. Like, how are we going to complete this mission? It's almost kind of like after he loses his best friend and now he's the one domino left standing, he now has that self-doubt of like, can we actually complete this mission? Is this a possibility?
Yeah, and especially towards, I think it's like right at the end of the episode too, you get to see when they're all like walking away from the scene, Fives turns around and looks back at what happened back there.
I was going to point at you, but I can't find my camera. There we go. Yes, that is spot on, dude. You're right, for sure. What an incredible arc with the Citadel, for sure. And I mean, like, it's funny. We are talking about like the back half of season 3 and like how incredible that was. And we can even touch on some more Mortis stuff in a minute, but like, even going to the start of the season, I thought we had a lot of incredible episodes. DJ, I know you have some that you want to talk about. Go ahead.
Like, for me, the early season 3 was pretty good with this episode in mind, and I think you know where I'm headed with this one. I think it was episode 2 when the Battle of Camino and all that. Like,
yes,
to me, that set the tone for season 3 because we're gonna get some more Clone Wars battles for sure, especially with Obi-Wan and Anakin and Grievous and Ventress. Like, that's like 4 main characters right there in one episode. Like, who is not gonna watch that? And plus, we're on Camino, which is the clone facilities there. Like, right in that moment, it's like we are gonna have an awesome like episode here, awesome fight scenes, and we sure did. We weren't disappointed. That episode to me set the tone of what season 3 was gonna be like, and then the second half really went up 2 times for me.
One of the things with Clone Wars is like I always find it weird when they tell stories out of order and stuff, because it's really like the only Star Wars show to really do this. Like when you watch like Bad Batch or Rebels or Mandalorian, like a lot of that stuff is in order. But Clone Wars is really one of those shows where it's like, okay, we're going to tell a story in season 1, and then we're going to like tell the prequel to that in another season, but then immediately we're going to tell like the follow-up to that first episode in season 1 in another season. They did this with the Christophsis arc even. It's like, okay, we're going to tell the story in the movie, but then we're going to tell a prequel to that in season 1, and then we're going to tell a prequel to that prequel in season 2. So it definitely makes it interesting when you're watching it through in like the release order, like I've been doing. But yeah, I mean, if you're watching it in like chronological order, it kind of goes through pretty well. But once you get to that like back half of season 3, then everything starts flowing together like much better, I would say. One of the episodes actually that I wanted to bring up as well is the episode where Quinlan Vos shows up, because it's like the only time we get him in this show. Man, like I thought it was like a great introduction to him, and I know like every Star Wars The Clone Wars fan will keep harping on the point of like we should have gotten Dark Disciple and stuff, but like it's because it's true and it was such a great story. This was like the perfect setup for Quinlan Vos to tell more stories with him. And I know there's a lot of people that like don't like the Hunt for Zero episode, but personally, I know DJ, you weren't too big of a fan of it, but like personally for me, I enjoyed it, and I liked seeing the duel with Cad Bane and stuff, and I thought that was all done very well.
I was gonna probably agree with DJ more there. I'm not
really okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Really, the only thing that goes good for that episode is the chemistry between Obi-Wan and Quinlan. Seeing Quinlan have force psychometry as a force power, that was really cool to see. And then the battle between Cad Bane and Obi-Wan and Quinlan. But honestly, those were like the only things that were going.
Sure.
That episode specifically.
I think, the one thing I do wish they would have done, because like the whole like Zero love story thing, I didn't really care about. I'll give you that much. But
it sucked.
Yeah, I know. Star Wars is always hit and miss when it comes to their love stories, for sure. I do think if they would have brought the zero level of comedy that they brought when he was at the end of that one episode with Aura Singh, which I don't know why, I always just found that so funny. Like with him in the cell, just like being like oddly triggered by the fact that he's talking to a youngling. And then when Ahsoka's like, well, we got Aura Singh in custody. She told us everything. And he's like, what? She told you what? I knew I should have hired someone, but I didn't. Like, I just said that out loud. Like, I thought that stuff was very funny. If they would have brought that to that Hunt for Zero episode, I think they would have had like a golden episode right there.
Yeah. If they could have stuck the landing a little bit better, I think it
Sure.
was good, arc there.
What about the Mandalore episodes? What did you guys think of those?
Ooh. You want to take this one?
I'll take it. Yeah. I mean, it's cool that we get to see more Mandalorian lore, but to me, it was just kind of boring, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, it was cool that they brought Ahsoka in for the last episode of that, but I don't know. It didn't really do much for me. But again, it was cool to see, the world building and lore of Mandalore in that sense, how they're, transitioning from their warrior past to more of a neutral system, and what the consequences of that are.
And for me personally, I feel like season 2 was the best stuff to show the Mandalore side of things. Like,
yeah, I think we're in agreement there. Yeah.
Season 3 wasn't bad, but I feel like that was more of a political kind of episodes, and I feel like for what we as fans we were more looking for the battles more.
Sure.
And for me, season 2 was the jackpot for me, and I just didn't feel like that the same way like I did for season 2.
I'll kind of defend these episodes a little bit, because I think that there were two things that I wanted coming out of season 2, was more Mandalore and more Death Watch. I didn't get the second, but I got the first. And I think like seeing Padme and like a Satine team up episode to like undercover this like, huge bit of corruption that's going on, I thought that story played very well in my opinion. And then getting Ahsoka, like kind of finishing out the second half of it, and really that episode really showed the viewers like how powerful in the Force Ahsoka was becoming. The fact that like she had no lightsaber, she was in like binders as well when she was taking on all those cops, the dirty cops that were paid by Almec. And it was like, oh my gosh, like Ahsoka, like if you would have put Ahsoka that went up against Asajj Ventress and got her butt kicked in season 1, that girl wouldn't have stood a chance. This Ahsoka not only stood a chance, she owned them all and she beat them. So I think in that regard, I think if for nothing else, this arc worked for that reason, for the sake of Ahsoka.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make about Ahsoka, because I think Ahsoka's character development in this season is very underrated, to be honest.
Yes, I'm with you there.
So we see her in season 2, the final arc where she goes up against Aura Singh in the Boba Fett arc. She's able to get the upper hand, but I feel like she had a lot of issues and problems in that arc that she had to face, and she wasn't 100% ready to deal with. But now we go into season 3, it's heavily stated and implied she has grown stronger, and especially when she has that rematch with Aura Singh, and she's having those visions that are similar to what Anakin has in Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, where she's having visions of Padme dying. It's showing how strong and how advanced she's becoming. And then especially when we get her in the Citadel arc, where she wasn't supposed to be there but ends up proving herself, and then proving herself again when she gets kidnapped by the Trandoshans. It's just great stuff.
To your point though about Ahsoka, one of the things that really stood out to me at the end of season 2 was this whole idea of like Ahsoka telling Boba that she's not a murderer, and then like 5 minutes later she thinks that she's killed someone in Aura Singh. And one of the things that they didn't really touch too much on it in season 3, but like this idea of the fact that Aura is actually alive, and she could have been like, oh wait, I didn't actually kill this person. Like, it's okay. Like, everything's all good. Cause I know she was like so down on herself at the end of that season. Cause like she just got done telling this boy that she's not a killer. And then in her mind, she just killed his mother figure. You know what I'm saying? I wish that was something they would have tackled more, but that episode though, where she goes up against Aura, what I liked so much about that was like, we see the progression of Ahsoka, but that doesn't mean she's ready to start taking on like top tier like bounty hunters yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, maybe she could take on like a lower tier hunter for sure, but like Aura Singh is like the cream of the crop, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to bounty hunters, like her and Cad Bane. So like Aura beat her pretty quickly. Luckily she had, you know, Padme there to help her out, but it's one of those things with Ahsoka, like you take steps forward while also taking steps back. And that's going to, once we get to season 5, that's going to be a major thing. I promise you. But like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Ahsoka's character growth in this season was absolutely fantastic.
I think the arc that best portrayed her progression, though, is definitely the Trandoshan Hunters arc.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Ooh, good arc.
I think that arc is heavily slept on. It's one of the most underrated arcs, and honestly,
I agree.
It contends with the best of the best episodes and arcs in this very same season.
Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you because, like, I'm actually earlier today. I actually just got done watching Padawan Lost, which was the first part of that arc. And yeah, man, like it's low key really, really good in terms of like telling this story with Ahsoka and her having to like not only be able to survive on her own, but be able to help other people survive with her and people that are like around her age as well, right? The introduction of Chewbacca into the Clone Wars as well in this arc, I thought was such a beautiful touch.
It really was.
That was fun, honestly. Like they didn't have to do that, but the fact that they did it and they actually made it make sense, unlike some cameos we get in other shows, I think it worked. I think it worked really well.
My thing with cameos as well, because I know there's like some people that like, you know, don't like cameos or whatever. Like for me, cameos are good if done right. And I think to your point, the Chewbacca one I thought was done appropriately where like he didn't hijack the moment. You know, like he was a part of the moment. He was a part of the crew, but the story didn't all of a sudden just become about him just because he showed up.
The ending of this arc really stuck it for me. I just want to point it out. When Anakin comes to her side, when he finds her all good, he starts apologizing for like letting her get captured and stuff like that. But Ahsoka, you know, kind of consoles him where she's like, no, none of this was your fault. And honestly, it's because of you that I was able to survive and lead these others to survive as well. And then he's stunned by this. And she's like, I know what to say. And it's thank you. And Anakin, you know, has this like a look of like resolve and like of content with his Padawan, knowing that she's safe. And knowing that she can survive on her own now. And then when we see at the end, you see Yoda coming around and he's like smiling to himself. He's like, this is what Yoda wanted all along, is he wanted Anakin to be responsible for someone and be able to let go of someone when it comes to that. And I feel like if what happened in season 5 didn't happen, I think Anakin would have went a long way in, you know, learning to let go. But unfortunately, all that stuff in season 5 happened and it just all collapsed.
I think I am going to like slightly disagree a little bit with what you were saying. I don't think that Anakin necessarily took this as a way to necessarily let go of Ahsoka. Because you see in that first episode, like when he does lose her, he's obviously very upset. And he's like, I'm not going to leave her fate up to others. I think what he took out of this episode or like out of those episodes is the fact that, okay, I've at least trained her enough to know that she can take care of herself, but I don't think he's able to let go. And I think as time goes on, like as we get to season 5, you're going to see that as well. But the whole purpose of Yoda giving him Yoda giving Anakin an apprentice is to help him let go. And if anything, I think that him giving him a Padawan only made that worse. I think that this was an experiment done by Yoda that ends up failing because when you see what happens later, I think that helps in his descent to the dark side because he's not able to let those people go. I even brought this up in my my Phantom Menace video that I did a while back. Like all the essential people that were in Anakin's life at the time were then like Qui-Gon was dead. Padme was off being a queen and his mother was stuck as a slave on Tatooine. When you get to the Clone Wars, he gets this little sister in Ahsoka and eventually he loses that too. So then when you get to Revenge of the Sith and he ends up, the potential comes like, oh my gosh, I could lose my wife here. that's the main thing that leads him down the dark path. So I don't know if it was necessarily that he let go of Ahsoka, but it was at least like, okay, I know that as a master, she has just reassured me that all of that training that I've done for her seems to be paying off. And this is really the first time that we see Ahsoka compliment him in that way as well. So that's kind of more the way that I took it personally.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that like he wasn't able to let go of Ahsoka. He definitely wasn't. But I think in this moment, there was progression there. Like maybe he could be like going that direction. Maybe he could be getting close to being able to. And I think that's why Yoda was smiling at the end, is because that was his purpose all along, for him to have an apprentice. And in this moment when he's smiling, I think what he's thinking is that Anakin is getting closer to being able to let people go.
I like the way the Trandoshan hunters were used in that arc too. Like they were fierce, aggressive, like for like a group of bounty hunters or like, you know, some kind of hunting party. Like the Trandoshan hunters are on the top of that list, honestly. They were really well performed in that arc.
Like to Orcaz's point, this is such an underrated arc in the Clone Wars. I think though, DJ, I think we had mentioned it with you a little bit before, but I want to go more in depth with it because this is arguably one of the greatest Clone Wars arcs, if not the greatest, and that's being the Mortis arc. I want to raise a couple of questions about it. And really the first of which is, do you think it was a dream? Do you think it was like, how am I trying to word this? Did Mortis actually, we know we see this story play out with like Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka actually like being on this planet. They do all this stuff, but did it actually happen? Or is it more of like a Force vision sort of thing of like the Force telling Anakin that he's the chosen one? Or like, I don't know, DJ, do you have any thoughts?
They went into like this, like, you know, black square or black hole, whatever. Like that's not necessarily a dream, you know, like I didn't think it was a dream.
But if you also remember at the end of that arc, they're in constant communication with Rex. So it's, unless it's like the Chronicles of Narnia where it's like no time passes in Mortis, you know, like it does in Narnia. I'm not saying that this is exactly what I think. I'm raising the question to you to see like, you know, for us to have like some deep conversation here about like what actually went on with Mortis.
Yeah, I'd agree with DJ. I think this was definitely a real thing. Like all the stakes that were going into this, all the tests like that Anakin went through and stuff. The one thing that makes, I'm just thinking about it now, but the one thing that makes me do think it could have been a dream sequence is how the son randomly is on their ship when they're leaving. Like how did he? And if he really wanted to like take over the galaxy, he should have just stayed hidden on that ship and let them leave Mortis.
How did the son know who Anakin's mom was? How did he know to turn in? You know what I'm saying? How did he know to turn into her when he was sleeping in that room?
I think Mortis is a great arc. Whether or not it's a dream sequence or not, I tend to lean a little bit more it wasn't. But because I also think like Qui-Gon appearing to them, I think that was all real, especially what Anakin says in season 6 during the Yoda's journey arc, where they think it's like some sort of like mind illusion. I think that was all real, to be honest, where like Qui-Gon senses Mortis, he's able to be visible to them. I feel like that's a real thing. But yeah, this episode was really good. I really love that they introduced the father, son, and daughter to canon. I think that's overall been really important to canon Star Wars as a whole. So yeah, that's really nice.
It's crazy how like with the Mortis arc, there's always like questions that we have about it still to this day, and I don't need every question about Mortis to be answered. Like I think there is room for that like level of mysticism there and like room for speculation and stuff. Like I think as long as like certain people maybe at Lucasfilm have an idea of what they want to do with it, and then maybe at some point in like other parts of Star Wars, more questions get answered. Like I think, judging by the end of the Ahsoka series, like there was obviously some sort of connection to Mortis there. So I think it definitely leaves more room for stories to be told when it comes to that planet and to those people, to the father, the son, and the daughter. One of the things I really enjoyed about that arc as well was seeing Ahsoka kind of go over to the dark side a little bit. Obviously, like not of her own choosing. But it was kind of one of those things where it's like, man, what if Ahsoka had to go up against Anakin one day, and what would all go down there? And it was kind of a little bit of a preview. I know Anakin was obviously holding back tremendously because he didn't want to have to harm his own Padawan. Yeah. And I think that was like the first time we see her use 2 lightsabers as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Was that episode?
It was.
I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's actually the first.
Because she had it, if you remember in the Senate episode where she goes to Raxus, she has the lightsaber. She has both lightsabers on her belt, but I think that's the first time that we ever see her use both of them in action. Was that episode?
It was.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it would be. I was gonna say Citadel, but that happens after.
That happens after, right, right. And then like Anakin going over to the dark side as well. Incredibly so willingly, he was just like, okay, so I kill children, I kill my wife, I blow up a planet, and I get in this giant black suit. You know what? I think the Jedi are at fault at this. They're the ones who are willing to stand in the way of peace. I'm going to go join the Sun in his little expansion so I don't do all of this terrible stuff. I'm going to replace the terrible stuff with different terrible stuff. I do kind of find that funny. Dude, shout out James Arnold Taylor when he looks up at Anakin and sees what's going on. When he delivers the line, Anakin, why? Like, it's so heart-wrenching for Obi-Wan to see that. Like, oh my gosh, it was such one of James Arnold Taylor's best performances in the entire show is that moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably only topped by some other heartbreaking scene that happens to him later, but
yes, yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna go on like a quick tangent off of this. When I played the Lego Star Wars game, like the Skywalker Saga game, and you listen to all the Clone Wars actors that are in that game, like James Arnold Taylor, Matt Lanter, and you're getting to see the story of the prequels with their voices, it hits different. Not saying that like it hits better than like the prequels or anything like that. I'm not saying that. It just hits different as someone who's been like a massive fan of the Clone Wars, and it's like one of my favorite parts of Star Wars. So like when Obi-Wan delivers that line in here, it's just one of those things like I see the same person that I watched in the movies, but it's being told in a different light, I guess. Yeah. So I don't. Again, I'm not saying it's better than like Ewan and Hayden. It's just different. But in terms of season 3, I think we've kind of gone over a lot of the major points that I want to cover. Unless anybody else has like any closing thoughts, anything that they want to touch on.
I'm good.
You good, DJ? Orcaz, what about you?
Yeah, I think one of the only things we really missed was the development of the clones as well in this season. Like
sure.
Oh yeah.
Clone development we see with especially Domino Squad, and then we didn't talk about 99. Like,
okay, yeah, we got to talk about him. Sure,
we kind of do.
Just a goated character. I mean, 99 is one of the best clones, even though he's not as physically capable as all the other clones. The wisdom and knowledge and just brotherhood he has with the other clones, despite not being very much like them at all, is just so heartwarming and touching. And then to see him die at the end of the Battle of Camino, that's heartbreaking. I mean, I can't remember if I like shed tears at that moment, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's so sad.
One of the scenes that always gets me emotional with 99, like watching it now, like more as an adult, is when he's talking with Heavy, and Heavy says something like, you know, we're nothing but a bad batch. We're a bunch of failures, like you. And he just sits there and he's like, how can I be a failure when I never had my chance? And it's like, man, they really took this guy. They had a perception of him, and they just casted him away without even ever giving him a chance to prove himself in battle. And I felt like that whole second episode of him helping Echo and Fives on Camino was all about him helping the Republic and proving that he deserves to be on that battlefield. And you hear Cody at the end say like he really was one of us. Yeah. Like it was such a beautiful story with him.
He's basically the sole reason Domino Squad succeeded in their Citadel trial. He's the reason. He brought Heavy back. He brought Heavy in as the leader of Domino Squad, and that's the reason they were able to pass. And that's how we see all of their stories. Heavy sacrifice in season 1, episode 5. Obviously, we see Echo all the way into the Bad Batch, and we see Fives all the way up until season 6. That moment that 99 had with Heavy is the only reason that Echo, Heavy, and Fives went on to be some of the best Star Wars characters, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of clones that I feel strong about too, are like such great characters in the show. I would say that season 3, though, like when it comes to the development of the clones, I don't know if it was necessarily like the best season, because like once we get into like season 4, like one of the first arcs that we get with the clones, man, like holy crap, it hits hard. But I thought like in terms of Domino Squad with like Echo and Fives, I thought they did a great job with the both of them throughout this season. And it was always one of those things like when you get to that point in the Citadel arc, because the Citadel arc isn't necessarily about the clones, but when you get to that moment when Echo ends up dying, I mentioned this to DJ in one of our videos, like they'd give you a good amount of time to like really let it sink in that this guy is dead. Like they have the couple shots of like all the characters reacting. They pan down on his helmet and leave it there for a good like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, something like that. And it's like, oh, we just lost like one of the main clones that we've been building up this entire time, like throughout the show. He's now gone, and we're now all 4 of the 5 dominoes are now gone. We've only got 1 left. Oh, man. Dude, it's gonna be a really sad day when he like officially falls. When the last domino officially falls, it's gonna be, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself, man. Like
we'll never know.
Don't make me think about that, man.
I know, man. I know, but like,
we will never know.
Well, I wouldn't say we never know. I mean, we've got like the Bad Batch just happened. I still think that they could do a show in the middle between Bad Batch and Rebels that tells more stories about the clones. I think there is 100% a chance that this story somehow gets told at some point. So never say never. The closing thing that I want to leave you guys with, one other question I want to ask you guys is, where would you rank, and Orcaz, I'll start with you on this one. Where would you rank season 3 in terms of the first 3 seasons that we got? Would you definitively say it's your favorite, or do you like another season perhaps more than this one?
Oh yeah, season 3 is definitely best. It's like 1 score ahead of even season 2. I think like season 2 is like an 8 out of 10 for me, but this season is a 9 out of 10. So it's like this season is definitely a big step up from season 2 in my opinion. I'm
definitely right there with you. DJ, what about you?
I like season 3 in general, but for me, I'd still go season 2 as my number 1, and then season they're both neck and neck, but right now season 2 has the edge on me right now. But then it's
what about season 2 really stands out to you then? Like what is it, like what parts of season 2 do you really enjoy then that makes it like highly regarded for you?
Geonosis, Mandalore.
Okay.
And then those are the main 2.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely right there with you, bro. With like Geonosis and Mandalore, those are 2 phenomenal arcs for sure. Go ahead.
And the Eth Koth, that was fun. The Eth Koth arc.
Oh, like the General Grievous story. Yeah, that was like the last like General Grievous arc that we've really gotten in a minute. But like we don't really get much Grievous anymore, which is always kind of sad. I like seeing Grievous around, but I know if they're just gonna have him keep losing like they did in season 1, I'd rather they not do that. But yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely right there with you though. I think that's going to wrap us up for today, you guys. I've definitely enjoyed this discussion. You guys, both of you are welcome on this channel anytime to talk Star Wars whenever you want. Thank you both for being here, and thank you all for watching this, for checking this out. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this 3-man booth that we got going on right here. Do you guys like it? Do you not like it? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.